The howling winds of a distant, frozen planet cut through the vast, barren landscape like knives, swirling snowflakes in every direction. The temperature had dropped to a deadly -30 degrees Fahrenheit, and the isolation of this place made the planet feel like a tomb. Jack Thompson adjusted the collar of his weathered jacket, trying to shield himself from the wind as he trudged forward, each step in the thick snow a laborious task. His breath came out in visible clouds, mixing with the frozen air, a reminder of how precious the oxygen was in his tank. A beep echoed from his backpack, signaling the low oxygen warning. He was running out of time. He glanced at the horizon, knowing it would take hours to reach the damaged space shuttle. His eyes scanned the horizon again, this time seeing something out of place, a figure stumbling in the snow. Jack hesitated for a moment, then cursed under his breath. Someone was out there. As he closed the distance, the figure became clearer, a young alien girl, barely standing, her body covered in a ragged cloak. Her violet skin was nearly invisible against the snow, and her eyes, glowing faintly with an unnatural golden hue, were filled with pain. She collapsed into the snow just as Jack reached her side. Hey, hold on, Jack shouted, his voice cracking with the cold. She stirred, her breathing shallow, eyes locking onto him. She was clearly dying. Her lips parted, as if she was about to speak, but the words never came. Instead, she gasped for air, her body trembling violently in the harsh elements. Jack's heart pounded. He knew he didn't have enough oxygen to last both of them, but there was no way he could leave her to die alone. His fingers fumbled with the strap of his oxygen tank, and with a final glance at the shuttle miles away, he unstrapped it and handed it to her. You need this more than I do. The alien girl's eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face. She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper, choked with the struggle to breathe. Why would you do this? She rasped, her hand trembling as she reached for the tank. Jack smiled faintly, though it was a smile filled with exhaustion and resignation. Because someone has to. She took the tank, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, her breathing began to stabilize, the color returning to her face. Jack watched in amazement as the alien girl slowly stood up, her body healing, the tank's life-saving oxygen doing its work. But just as he thought he might have made it through this ordeal, the distant sound of a ship's engines broke the silence. A low rumble grew louder, vibrating the ground beneath them. Jack's eyes darted to the sky. Dark shapes appeared, slowly taking form as warships, their massive frames blocking out the sun. The sky filled with them, a fleet descending from the heavens, their engines glowing with a deadly promise. His heart raced as the ships came closer, and he realized something. Something big was happening. This wasn't just a rescue. Jack had unwittingly triggered a chain of events that would change everything. The alien girl, now standing tall and fully revived, looked up at the ships, her eyes no longer filled with fear, but with something else, something Jack couldn't quite place. You saved me, she said, her voice soft but firm. And now they know. They are coming for you, human. Jack swallowed hard, knowing that whatever came next, he wouldn't be able to turn back. Not now. Not after everything that had just happened. Jack stood frozen, his breath coming in short bursts as the warships slowly descended from the heavens above. The alien girl beside him, her violet skin now a shade darker from the revived energy, looked up at the ships with a mixture of awe and fear. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He had no idea what he had just triggered, but he knew it was big. The ships continued to descend, casting long shadows over the snowy landscape. Their engines hummed like an ominous, distant growl. Jack took a step back, instinctively reaching for his radio, but there was no time. The ships were already within range, their size almost incomprehensible. They seemed to blot out the sky itself. The alien girl, her breath still shaky from the near-death experience, straightened up and turned to face him. Her golden eyes locked onto his. They are here, she said quietly, her voice still carrying the faint traces of gratitude. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He had no idea who they were, but he could feel the gravity of the situation pressing down on him. Who are they? Jack asked, trying to steady his voice. The alien girl didn't respond immediately. Instead, she walked toward him, her steps graceful despite the intense cold. You saved me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And now they are coming. You will not be left alone. Jack opened his mouth to ask more questions, but the sight of the warships growing larger in the sky silenced him. They were close now. So close that he could see the intricate designs on their hulls, the weapon systems that adorned their sides. These were not just random ships. They were a fleet, and it was clear they were not here for a casual visit. As the lead ship broke through the clouds, it hovered just above the ground, its massive form blocking out the sun. The air around Jack seemed to thicken, the cold pressing in on him like never before. The alien girl stepped forward, her eyes glowing brighter now, her expression unreadable. Jack followed her gaze, still unsure of what was happening. Then, as if in response to some silent command, the ships began to land, their enormous bodies touching the frozen ground with a low, resounding hum. Jack took a step back, his mind racing. He had no weapons, no way to defend himself. He was utterly powerless. But the alien girl didn't seem afraid. She stood tall, her chin lifted in defiance, as if she had been expecting this moment all along. The ramp on the lead ship lowered slowly, revealing a group of figures emerging from within. They were humanoid, their armor gleaming in the dim light. Jack's breath caught in his throat as one of them stepped forward, their glowing eyes meeting his. The alien girl beside him tensed, but did not move. She looked at Jack, her eyes filled with something deeper, something almost like understanding. "These are the leaders of my people," she said, her voice steady. "They are here because of you." Jack swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking in. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. He knew the alien girl had to be important, but he had no idea how important. She had to be more than just a survivor, more than just someone he had helped out of kindness. There was something more at play here, something bigger. "You saved my life," she said again this time, with a softness that seemed to pierce through the tension. "And for that, they will not harm you." Jack stood still, unsure of how to respond. His whole life had led to this moment, and he had no idea what came next. The alien fleet, now fully landed, seemed to wait, as if expecting something from him. He couldn't move, couldn't think straight. The hum of the ships filled the air, a constant reminder that his fate was no longer in his own hands. "We are not here to destroy you," the alien girl continued, taking a step closer to him. "We are here to offer you a choice." Jack's mind raced. A choice? What choice could he possibly have at this point? His eyes darted between the warships and the girl. The tension was palpable. "The choice is yours," she said softly. Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. This was not just a rescue. This was something far bigger, something he had never imagined. And somehow, in the middle of this chaos, he had become part of it. The alien girl stood still, her glowing golden eyes fixed on the fleet in front of them. The warships, now fully landed, formed a perfect line, their metallic surfaces gleaming under the weak sunlight that pierced through the clouds. Jack felt the weight of their presence pressing down on him, the hum of the ships vibrating through the ground beneath his feet. For a moment, everything was silent. The wind had died down, and even the snow seemed to freeze in place. Jack could feel the cold creeping into his bones, but it was nothing compared to the cold feeling settling in his chest. He was trapped in this moment, unsure of what to do next. The alien girl turned her gaze toward him, and for the first time, he saw something like sympathy in her eyes. "You don't understand yet, do you?" she asked softly. Jack shook his head, trying to find his voice. "I don't understand what?" "The choice they offer you," she replied, her voice steady. "You can leave this place, return to your world, or you can stay. If you stay, you will become part of something much larger than yourself." Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" She took a step closer, her eyes never leaving his. "You saved my life. And now they are here to repay that debt. The fleet you see before you, they belong to my people. The Tan Dominion." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "The Tan Dominion?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The alien girl nodded. "Yes, we are an ancient race, spread across many systems. But we are not like the others in this galaxy. We are a people bound by honor, by tradition, by a code that values life above all else." She paused, as if weighing her next words carefully. "You may not know this, but your kind, humans, have sparked something in us. Something new. A hope that has been lost for centuries." Jack swallowed, trying to process what she was saying. "What does this have to do with me?" he asked, still struggling to understand the gravity of the situation. Everything, she said, her voice growing softer. You were the first to show us what it means to be selfless, to sacrifice. That is why we are here. We offer you a chance to join us, to become part of our alliance, to help us lead our people into a new era. But it is not a decision to be taken lightly. Jack stood there, stunned. The idea of joining an alien empire was overwhelming, but the thought of returning to his lonely existence on Earth seemed unbearable. He had never asked for any of this, never expected to be caught up in something this grand. But as he looked at the fleet, at the alien girl standing before him, he realized that his life had already changed in ways he couldn't undo. He had made a choice by saving her. Now, that choice would shape his future. The girl spoke again, her voice almost a whisper. You saved me, and now, you will have the power to change the course of our future. But only if you choose to stay. Jack took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had always considered himself just a regular guy, never someone who could make a difference. But now, standing before this alien girl, with the fate of entire civilizations hanging in the balance, he couldn't deny that he was about to become part of something much bigger. I don't know if I'm ready for this, he admitted, his voice shaking. The girl smiled gently as if she had been expecting his response. None of us are ready for what lies ahead, but you have already shown you have the heart for it. And sometimes, that's all it takes. The silence between them deepened as Jack took in her words. He glanced up at the warships, the looming presence of the Tan Dominion surrounding him. There was no turning back now. Whatever path he chose, he knew it would define the rest of his life. And for the first time, Jack felt a sense of purpose that had long eluded him. This was just the beginning. His journey had only just begun. Jack stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the alien girl as the words she spoke continued to echo in his mind. The choice she had presented felt monumental, but the weight of his decision had yet to fully sink in. His hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from the realization that his life was no longer his own. The fleet above him, silent yet imposing, seemed to be waiting for something. But what? He glanced back at the alien girl, who stood unwavering, her golden eyes filled with a mix of resolve and something else, perhaps hope, or perhaps an expectation he wasn't ready to confront. You have already made the first choice, she said softly, breaking the silence. You saved me, Jack. That was the moment that changed everything. Jack swallowed hard, the reality of her words settling in. He had acted out of instinct, out of compassion, but never did he imagine that one small act of kindness would set off a chain of events so far beyond his comprehension. I don't know if I'm ready for what comes next, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The girl nodded, her expression softening. No one is ever truly ready, she replied. But the universe has a way of calling on those who least expect it. You've already answered that call. Jack's mind raced. He had been living a life of solitude, a technician in a research station, far from the chaos of the galaxy. Now, here he was, standing in the middle of a frozen wasteland, surrounded by an alien fleet, forced to confront the unknown. Was he truly ready for this? To become part of something larger than himself? To join a people he knew nothing about? The girl stepped closer to him, her voice steady. You can leave, Jack. Return to your life on Earth. It will be as though none of this ever happened. She paused, as if giving him a moment to consider. But if you choose to stay, know that you will never be the same. The road ahead is uncertain, and it will test you in ways you cannot predict. Jack looked up at the warships, their massive forms gleaming against the gray sky. He felt a pang of fear in his chest, but there was also a flicker of something else, curiosity, perhaps, or the faintest spark of excitement. His life had always been predictable, safe. But now, everything had changed. What happens if I choose to stay? He asked, his voice quiet but firm. The girl met his gaze, her eyes glowing brighter as she spoke. If you stay, you will join us. You will become part of the Tan Dominion. You will help us rebuild, help us fight for a future that we have long since lost. The choice will be yours, but know this. Your life will never return to what it was. Jack felt a rush of emotion, a mix of fear and exhilaration. He had never imagined his life could be this important. He had never thought he could play a role in shaping the future of a galaxy. But now, the possibility was real. He was no longer just Jack Thompson, a man working on a lonely research station. He was a part of something much bigger. The girl extended her hand to him, her golden eyes reflecting the distant stars above. We do not expect you to be perfect, Jack. Only to be willing. Will you stand with us? Jack looked at her hand, then back at the fleet above them. The weight of the decision hung in the air, but it no longer felt like a burden. It felt like destiny. Slowly, he reached out and took her hand, his grip steady. I'm ready, he said, his voice filled with conviction. As their hands met, a sense of finality washed over him. This was the beginning of something new. Something he couldn't yet understand, but something he was ready to face. The sky above them seemed to shift, the ships now fully aligned, ready to take off into the unknown. And Jack, for the first time in his life, felt truly alive. The moment Jack's hand met the alien girl's, something shifted. It wasn't just a physical gesture, but a bond being forged, an unspoken promise between two beings from different worlds. The heavy silence surrounding them seemed to press in on him, but it no longer felt suffocating. Instead, he felt lighter, like the weight of the universe had lifted just a little. The alien girl, whose name Jack had yet to learn, looked at him with an intensity that spoke of countless lifetimes, of stories beyond his understanding. You have made the right choice, Jack, she said, her voice calm, almost reassuring. The words seemed to linger in the air, and Jack felt a strange warmth spread through him, even in the freezing temperatures. As if the cold didn't matter anymore. What happens now? He asked, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts racing in his mind. The girl nodded toward the warships hovering above them. We leave. We head to our home planet, where you will be tested, trained, and prepared for the role that awaits you. She paused, her eyes scanning the distant horizon. But more than that, you will learn. About our people, about what we stand for, and about the future we wish to create. Jack glanced up at the fleet, still in awe of its size, its power. He had never imagined that something so grand, so vast, could be part of his world. But here he was, standing in the middle of it, on the verge of a new life. I'm not sure I understand everything, he admitted, his voice tinged with uncertainty. But I want to learn. I want to be part of this. The girl's smile was subtle but genuine, a rare expression that seemed to soften the edges of her otherwise composed demeanor. That is all we ask, Jack. That you are willing to learn. We will guide you. Without another word, she turned, leading him toward the base of the nearest warship. As they walked, Jack couldn't help but notice the alien soldiers who had been standing in formation, their eyes now fixed on him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. He felt a shiver run down his spine, not from fear, but from the overwhelming sense that he was stepping into a world far beyond his own. The ramp to the warship lowered, and a cool breeze swept through the opening. The interior was nothing like the cold, sterile environment of the research station Jack had once called home. Instead, it was sleek and sophisticated, with walls that seemed to shimmer with a faint glow and soft, ambient lighting that made the space feel warm and welcoming. As he stepped inside, the girl led him down a long hallway, her footsteps echoing softly on the metal floor. This is where your training will begin, she said. You will be introduced to the others who have made the same choice you have. You will learn the ways of our people and how we fight for the future we believe in. Jack nodded, his mind still racing with everything that had happened in the last few hours. He had gone from being an isolated technician on a research station to standing inside an alien warship, about to embark on a journey that would change his life forever. It was surreal. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. You will be tested, the girl continued, her voice steady. Your courage, your strength, and your ability to adapt will be pushed to their limits. But I believe you are ready. Jack glanced at her, meeting her gaze. I'm ready, he said, more to himself than to her. As they continued down the hallway, Jack realized that his life was no longer defined by the past, by the isolation and solitude he had known for so long. It was now defined by the choices he had made, by the path he was about to take. And no matter how uncertain the future seemed, he felt a sense of purpose rising within him. He was no longer just a man on a lonely planet. He was a part of something much larger, something that could change the fate of the galaxy, and he was ready to face it head-on. The ship hummed softly as Jack stood in the sleek training room, his mind swirling with the magnitude of the decision he had made. The alien girl, whose name he had now learned was Lyra, stood beside him, her calm presence a stark contrast to the whirlwind of thoughts that raged in his head. The room around them was minimalistic but sophisticated, with large holographic displays, projecting a myriad of alien symbols and maps. The walls, dark and smooth, seemed to pulse with an energy that made the air feel charged. Jack had been briefed on the basics of his new role, but the reality of it was beginning to set in. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was part of something much larger than himself, something that demanded more than what he had ever been prepared for. Lyra turned to him, her golden eyes meeting his. "Are you ready for the first lesson?" she asked, her voice steady, yet carrying an undertone of something deeper, something that almost felt like encouragement. Jack nodded, though doubt still lingered in the back of his mind. "I guess I don't really have a choice, do I?" he said with a half-smile, trying to hide the nervousness he felt. Lyra's lips quirked up slightly, almost as if she were amused by his attempt to downplay the situation. "In some ways, you do have a choice. But we both know what you're capable of." Her words, though simple, felt like a challenge. It was clear that she believed in him, but the weight of her expectations only made his unease grow. As if sensing his hesitation, Lyra motioned toward the holographic displays. "Let's start with the basics. This is the Tan Dominion's map. Our empire spans across 17 systems, each with its own unique environment, culture, and challenges. But there is one thing that binds us all, our commitment to unity. We fight not for conquest, but for survival." Jack watched as the map expanded, showing a network of star systems connected by thin, glowing lines. He had seen similar maps before, but nothing quite like this. The Tan Dominion was vast, much larger than anything he had imagined. "So, what exactly am I supposed to do in all of this?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of confusion. Lyra turned to face him, her expression serious now. "You're here because you possess something that the Dominion needs: human empathy, adaptability, and perspective. We are a people who have lost our way. The systems we control are divided, broken, and we need someone who can bridge that gap, someone who can remind us of what we've forgotten." Jack swallowed, trying to wrap his mind around what she was saying. He had no experience in diplomacy, no training in politics or leadership. All he had was his background as a technician. But here he was, being thrust into something that could change the course of an entire empire. "I'm just a regular guy," Jack muttered, more to himself than to Lyra. "I've never done anything like this." Lyra stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. "That's exactly why you're here. You don't carry the baggage of our past. You are unbiased, neutral. You have the potential to see things that we, as a people, have lost sight of." She paused for a moment, allowing her words to settle in the silence that followed. "Your role will be to learn from us. Yes, but also to teach us. To show us a different way of thinking." Jack blinked, trying to absorb everything she was saying. It was a lot to process, and the implications were overwhelming. He had no idea how he was supposed to help fix the broken systems of an entire empire. But the more Lyra spoke, the more he realized that perhaps this wasn't just about fixing an empire. It was about healing something much deeper, something within himself. "You're not alone in this," Lyra said, as if sensing his growing doubts. "You will have allies, both within the Dominion and beyond. But this is a long journey. You must be ready to face challenges you cannot predict." Jack nodded slowly, still unsure of the enormity of the task ahead, but something inside him stirred. Perhaps it was the sense of purpose he had longed for, or perhaps it was the weight of Lyra's faith in him. Either way, Jack knew one thing for sure. He wasn't the same man who had stepped onto that research station months ago. He had made a choice, and that choice would shape not only his future but the future of an entire people. With a deep breath, Jack finally spoke. "I'm ready. I may not know what I'm doing, but I'll learn." Lyra smiled, a genuine, warm smile that made her appear even more human, despite her alien features. "Good. That's all we ask." As she turned to the holographic displays again, Jack felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. Jack walked silently beside Lyra, the sound of their footsteps muffled by the soft hum of the warships' inner corridors. He was still adjusting to everything. The sudden shift from being just another technician to a part of something so vast, so important. Lyra's steady presence beside him was comforting, but the weight of the unknown pressed on him with each step. They reached a door at the end of the hallway, its surface smooth and dark, almost like polished obsidian. Lyra paused, turning to face him. "This is where you will begin your training, Jack," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now, something that spoke of the gravity of the moment. Jack nodded, though his stomach twisted in knots. "What will I be learning?" he asked, his voice a little rougher than he intended. Lyra's golden eyes met his, and for a brief moment, he saw something like pride in them. "You will learn about the history of the Tan Dominion, our culture, our values," she began. "But more importantly, you will learn about leadership, how to inspire trust, how to unite people, even in the most difficult of circumstances." Jack's heart raced. "Leadership? But I'm not a leader." Lyra stepped closer, her expression softening. "You don't have to be born a leader, Jack. You just have to be willing to listen, to learn, and to put others above yourself when the time comes. That is the true essence of leadership." The door to the training room slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a large, open space filled with various training tools and equipment. Jack's eyes widened as he took in the sight. The room was unlike anything he had seen before. Alien technologies that seemed both familiar and foreign, holographic interfaces, and training modules that adjusted to a person's needs. It felt like stepping into a completely new world. Lyra gestured for him to step inside. "The first lesson will begin now," she said. Jack hesitated for a moment, then stepped into the room, feeling a mix of awe and uncertainty. As soon as he crossed the threshold, a voice echoed through the room, low and commanding. "Welcome, Jack Thompson. You are about to begin your training with the Tan Dominion." Jack's head snapped around, but there was no one visible. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You will be tested on your ability to adapt, to think on your feet, and to make decisions under pressure. There is no going back once you begin." Jack stood still for a moment, taking in the weight of the words. He had no idea what kind of test awaited him, but he knew this was just the beginning. Lyra's voice broke his concentration. "You are not alone in this. There are others like you, humans who have chosen to join the Dominion. You will learn from each other, support each other, and grow together." Jack nodded, though his thoughts were still racing. The idea of learning to lead, of becoming someone who could inspire others, it seemed impossible. But something inside him urged him forward. He wasn't sure what it was, but he felt like this was his chance. This was the moment he had been waiting for, whether he realized it or not. The room around him shifted, the walls seeming to ripple as a new set of holographic displays appeared. "The first challenge is simple," the voice said. "You must navigate through the simulation, using only your instincts and the tools available to you." Jack frowned, unsure of what that even meant, but the voice continued. "There are no right answers, Jack. There are only decisions. And each decision will shape the path you take. The training begins now." The lights dimmed, and the air in the room seemed to thicken. Jack's heart pounded as the holographic landscape began to form around him. A virtual environment filled with obstacles and challenges that were both unfamiliar and daunting. This was real. This was his first test. "Trust yourself, Jack," Lyra's voice said softly, just behind him. Jack took a deep breath, his hand instinctively reaching out to one of the tools nearby. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for sure. He was ready to face it head on. Jack's heart raced as the holographic landscape around him shifted. The air was thick with tension, each new obstacle in the simulation feeling more real than the last. He could feel the cool surface of the training tools in his hands, their alien design unfamiliar but strangely intuitive. His mind flashed back to Lyra's words, "Trust yourself." He had no choice but to do just that. The first challenge appeared before him, a vast, dark chasm stretching across the floor, its edges barely visible in the dim lighting. The ground beneath his feet was unstable, shifting with every step he took. He knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to make it. Jack moved cautiously, his steps deliberate as he scanned the environment for anything that might help him cross. As his eyes flicked from side to side, he noticed a set of platforms hovering just out of reach on the other side of the chasm. He quickly analyzed the situation. No direct path, no visible tools to bridge the gap. Just a wide, empty space. The pressure was mounting, and Jack could feel the weight of his responsibility pressing on his shoulders. He couldn't afford to fail this test. Not now. Not after everything he had come this far for. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. This wasn't about brute strength or speed. This was about thinking on his feet. Jack quickly grabbed a small tool from his belt, a device he had seen earlier in his training that could create temporary energy platforms in midair. He activated it, and a small shimmer of light appeared before him, solidifying into a glowing platform. His heart raced as he stepped onto it, watching carefully as it held his weight. It worked. He moved forward cautiously, each step taking him closer to the next platform. But the gap was wide, and the further he went, the more the platforms seemed to flicker and dim. His mind raced as he realized the platforms wouldn't hold for long. He had to act fast. Jack grabbed a second device, using it to create another platform, this time farther out. He was running out of time, and the pressure was mounting with each passing second. He was almost there. One more leap, and he would be across. Jack's foot hovered over the next platform. He hesitated for just a fraction of a second before springing forward, his body twisting midair as he landed on the new platform, his heart hammering in his chest. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. He had made it. The holographic landscape dissolved, replaced by a new challenge, a vast open space filled with shifting walls and paths. He had completed the first challenge, but there was no time to celebrate. The real test was just beginning. As the walls shifted, revealing the next trial, Jack's breath steadied. He was ready. He didn't know what would come next, but he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer the same person who had walked onto this ship just hours ago. The weight of leadership, the responsibility of being part of something larger, had already begun to transform him. And this was just the start. He would adapt. He would learn. And, most importantly, he would prove that he was ready for whatever lay ahead. The next challenge unfolded before Jack as the walls in the simulation room shifted and realigned, creating a labyrinth of narrow corridors and steep inclines. It was like stepping into an entirely new world, one that seemed designed to test his every sense. The air was still, almost unnervingly so, and the lighting flickered as though the entire space were alive, watching him. Jack stood in the center, taking a deep breath, his hands now steady after the earlier test. He had passed that one, barely, but this was different. This was something else entirely. The voice from the ship's AI echoed again, low and steady. The second trial begins now. Trust yourself, and make your way through the maze. Jack glanced at the maze ahead, the walls looming over him. The path was unclear, every corner shrouded in mystery. Every step could lead to a dead end. He didn't know what the stakes were for this test, but his mind raced with the understanding that failure here might not just mean losing the trial. It might mean losing his place in this new life, this new purpose he had found. The walls were high, but Jack could see small ledges above, just out of reach. It was a trap, a test of his problem-solving skills, a chance to either push forward or get caught in a cycle of failure. He moved forward cautiously, feeling the weight of every step, his mind working rapidly, analyzing his surroundings. As he reached the first corner, he stopped. Something in the air felt off, like a quiet tension that hung just above the walls. He reached out and touched the surface of the nearest wall. It was smooth but oddly warm, unlike anything he'd encountered before. Then, he felt it, the faint vibration of the wall shifting beneath his touch. It wasn't just a wall, it was part of the puzzle. Jack pulled back, thinking quickly. He had learned enough in his time here to know that everything had a purpose, everything had a reason. The wall wasn't an obstacle, it was a clue. With a deep breath, he pressed his palm against the wall again, this time pushing with more force. The wall creaked and slowly began to slide open, revealing a hidden passage. Jack smiled to himself. It was that moment, the realization that he was no longer reacting out of fear, but out of understanding. He wasn't just a human lost in a maze. He was part of something bigger now, and his mind, his instincts, were adapting to the challenge. Jack moved forward into the newly revealed path, his pulse steady, his thoughts clear. The hallway ahead twisted and turned, and Jack knew the path wouldn't be as easy as simply finding one secret door. He would need to keep his wits sharp, because this trial wasn't about physical strength. It was about intelligence, strategy, and perseverance. As he turned another corner, the path split. offering him two choices. The left corridor appeared darker, almost foreboding, while the right was lit by a faint glow, but it was narrow, cramped. Jack stood at the fork, considering. The right was the safer bet, more light, more room, but something about the left intrigued him. Without hesitating, he turned toward the darker corridor, trusting his gut. The air grew colder as he moved deeper into the shadows, but his senses were on high alert. The farther he went, the more the walls seemed to close in around him, and the more he felt the challenge pressing down on him. It wasn't just a test of the body, it was a test of his mind, of his ability to think beyond the obvious. Jack knew he had made the right choice. It wasn't about the safest path, but the path that forced him to confront his fears, to challenge himself. He was no longer a man from Earth, just trying to survive. He was becoming something more, someone who could navigate not just alien mazes, but the complexities of leadership and survival. Jack moved forward with confidence, his steps firm now, knowing that the path ahead, though uncertain, was one he could face. He had already proved that he could adapt. Now, it was time to prove that he could lead.